At what was supposed to be a peaceful holiday dinner, my mom, Sophia 59, reignited a 20-year grudge against my aunt. What started as side comments over wine turned into full-blown chaos when she accused my aunt of ruining her past relationship. My brother tried to step in, but the fight spiraled out of control, dragging in old secrets no one expected to hear. What happened next left the whole family in shock. I honestly thought this year's holiday dinner would be peaceful. Foolish of me, I know. My family has a history of drama, but I really believe that since everyone's older now, my mom Sophia is 59, my brother Daniel is 34, my aunt Margaret is 61, we could just eat, laugh, and call it a night. The setting was my house. I spent 2 days cooking turkey, mashed potatoes, roasted vegetables, even baked a pie. The table was set with my grandmother's old china. Candles, soft jazz in the background, wine breathing on the counter. I wanted this dinner to feel warm, safe, and honestly normal. But my mom, Sophia, walked in with that look. You know, the one tight smile, eyes already scanning the room like she was looking for something to criticize. She kissed me on the cheek, told me the turkey smelled fine, and immediately asked, "Is Margaret coming?" I froze. "Yeah, Mom, she'll be here in about 20 minutes. Her jaw tightened. "Of course she will. See, my mom and her sister Margaret have had this weird Cold War since the early 2000s. I was too young to understand it back then, but I always picked up pieces. Something about Margaret interfering in one of Mom's relationships, warning the guy she was dating not to trust her. Mom always said it was Margaret's way of sabotaging her happiness. Margaret, on the other hand, claimed she was just protecting him. Anyway, dinner started off fine at first. My brother Daniel poured wine, cracked a few jokes, and my niece M12 was playing with her mashed potatoes, making little mountains. But once Margaret arrived, Mom's whole mood shifted. "Margaret," she said with a smile that was way too tight. "How nice of you to finally join us." Margaret put down her coat. "Traffic was awful, Sophia, but it's good to see everyone." They hugged stiffly, like two politicians forced to shake hands for the cameras. We sat down, plates full, and I tried to keep the conversation light. I asked Emma about school, Daniel about work. But slowly, the wine started doing its thing, loosening lips. It began with small comments. "Mom, some people always think they know best about other people's relationships." Margaret, laughing lightly, "Oh, don't start." "Mom, I'm not starting, I'm just saying, some wounds never heal." Daniel cleared his throat. "So, Emma got straight A's this semester." Mom cut him off, good for her. At least she doesn't have someone undermining her behind her back. The whole table went quiet. Forks hovered. Emma looked confused. Margaret sighed, muttered, "Here we go again." That's when I realized this wasn't just going to be a holiday dinner. It was going to be the night everything blew up. The silence after my mom's jab was thick, like the air had been sucked out of the room. I tried to salvage it. "Mom," I said carefully, "let's just enjoy dinner. It's been a long year. We're all here. That's what matters." But Sophia wasn't letting go. She put her fork down, folded her hands, and stared right at Margaret. "You think you can just show up every year like nothing happened? Like you didn't destroy one of the only good relationships I ever had?" Margaret set down her wine glass, her face calm but her eyes sharp. "Sophia, that was over 20 years ago. Are we really dragging this out again?" "Yes," Mom shot back instantly, "because it's not over for me." Daniel groaned, rubbing his temples. "Mom, please, not tonight. Emma's here." But Mom was on a roll now. She leaned forward, her voice dropping lower, more intense. "Do you know what it felt like, sitting across from a man I loved, hearing him say my own sister told him I was a manipulator, that I wasn't to be trusted?" Margaret's expression hardened. "Because you were manipulating him. You were stringing him along while talking to someone else on the side. I wasn't about to let him get hit." "Oh, don't you dare twist this." Mom snapped, her voice rising. "You never wanted me happy. You were jealous, always jealous, because I had looks, I had chances, and you didn't." The words hit like a slap. Margaret's cheeks flushed, and for a moment I thought she might throw her wine in Mom's face. Instead, she laughed bitterly. "You really think that I wasted my life worrying about your little boyfriends? God, Sophia, you haven't changed since high school." Daniel pushed his chair back. "All right, that's enough." But Mom stood up, palms flat on the table, leaning forward. "Don't tell me when it's enough. Daniel, this woman sabotaged me. She took something from me I can never get back." I caught Emma's wide eyes darting between them, her fork frozen in midair. She whispered, "Dad, what's happening?" But Daniel was too busy trying to calm Mom down. I finally raised my voice. "Can we please not do this right now? It's Christmas dinner." But Margaret fired back. "You want the truth, Sophia? Fine. I warned him because he deserved to know what you were doing. You weren't serious about him. You were serious about what he could give you: money, security, and guess what? He saw through it." The room exploded in noise. Mom shouted, "You ruined it because you couldn't stand me being happy." Daniel kept repeating, "Enough, enough, enough," and Emma quietly got up and went to the living room with her plate. I sat there, my appetite gone, staring at the candles flickering between them. This wasn't a new fight, it was an old wound that had never healed, just skept over. And tonight, Mom had ripped it wide open. And I had a horrible feeling it was about to get even uglier. Daniel slammed his hand down on the table so hard the glasses rattled. "Enough, both of you, you're acting like kids," and Emma's in the other room hearing all of this. But neither of them listened. Mom's face was red, her chest rising and falling fast. Margaret sat back in her chair, arms crossed, with that smug half smile that made everything worse. "You think you're so much better than me, don't you?" Mom spat. "Always judging. always whispering behind my back. Do you even realize how much damage you've caused in this family? Margaret shook her head. Oh, please, I didn't cause the damage. Sophia did. You chased every man who looked your way, left me to pick up the pieces when they realized who you really were. I was protecting people, and you knew it. I'd never seen my mom look so furious. Protecting people, she said in a low voice. Is that what you call it when you told James I was unfit to be a wife, or when you cornered him at Dad's barbecue and said I was incapable of loyalty? You didn't protect him, Margaret. You destroyed me. Daniel's face went pale. Wait, James, as in James Fletcher? Margaret's eyes flickered. Mom froze for a beat, then snapped. Yes, James, the man I loved, the man who was supposed to be my husband until my sister stuck her claws into our lives. Daniel leaned back, running a hand down his face. Oh my God, I remember that. You two were serious. What actually happened? Mom pointed a trembling finger at Margaret. What happened is she couldn't stand me being happy, so she told him lies until he broke it off. Margaret sat up straighter. Lies? No, Sophia. I told him the truth. About that little business trip where you didn't actually go out of town. About the nights you spent at the bar with Tom. Shut your mouth. Mom barked, her voice shaking. I felt my stomach twist. Wait, who's Tom? Margaret didn't miss a beat. Her little fling while she was with James. Don't act shocked. Sophia, you know it's true. The room went dead silent. Even the faint Christmas music from the speaker seemed to fade into the background. My mom's hands were clenched so tight her knuckles went white. You ruined my life, she whispered. You've held this over me for 20 years just to make yourself feel superior. Daniel looked between them, his voice breaking. So it's true, Mom, did you? But before Mom could answer, Margaret leaned forward, eyes cold. She did, and I'm tired of being the villain in this story. You made your choices, Sophia. Stop blaming me for the consequences. Mom slammed her chair back and stood up, tears streaming down her face. You're dead to me, Margaret. You hear me? Dead. And just like that, she stormed out of the dining room, leaving us in stunned silence, plates of untouched food cooling in front of us. The moment my mom stormed out, the room felt empty. Not just physically, but emotionally. The laughter, the warmth I had hoped for, gone in a flash. Margaret sat there, arms still crossed, staring at the table like she'd won some silent battle. Daniel rubbed his face, muttering under his breath, This is unreal. I went after Mom, finding her in the kitchen, pacing back and forth. Her hands were shaking, tears running down her cheeks and her chest heaving. I can't believe she said that, she whispered, almost to herself. 20 years and she just twists everything. She's always done this, always. I put a hand on her shoulder. Mom, I know it hurts, but storming out won't fix it. You're going to make things worse. She shook her head violently. No, I can't sit there pretending everything's fine. She destroyed me once, and now she's doing it in front of everyone again. Meanwhile, back at the dining room, Daniel and Margaret were having their own quiet confrontation. Dan, don't make this worse, Margaret said, voice slow but sharp. Sophia needs space. She's volatile right now. Daniel pinched the bridge of his nose. Volatile. Mom just accused you of ruining her life in front of everyone. Emma was in the other room hearing it. Margaret shrugged. That's exactly what she wanted, isn't it? Drama, attention. She's never learned to let things go. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. I knew both sides. I loved my mom, but I also understood Margaret. This wasn't just a fight about James, it was years of resentment, jealousy, and unresolved hurt. I tried calling Mom back to the table, but she didn't respond. I peeked into the living room. Emma was quietly drawing, her little face pale. I knelt next to her. Hey, sweetie, I said softly. Are you okay? Emma shrugged, voice tiny. I don't like it when they fight. Why do they fight all the time? I pulled her into a hug. It's complicated. Sometimes grown-ups carry grudges that shouldn't be there, but we're going to be okay, I promise. Minutes ticked by. I could hear muffled voices from the hallway, Mom and Margaret exchanging short, clipped words, but I couldn't make out what they were saying. Finally, Daniel got up. I'm going to try talking to Mom. Maybe I can calm her down before dinner completely falls apart. He left, and the house felt eerily quiet, the holiday lights casting long shadows across the walls. I realized that this wasn't going to be an ordinary holiday dinner anymore. The emotional damage from decades of grudges had finally burst through the surface, and I had no idea if anyone would come back to the table willingly. I just hoped that, somehow, by the end of the night, someone would find a way to keep the family together, or at least keep Emma from thinking this was normal. About 20 minutes later, Daniel returned, looking exhausted but determined. Mom was sitting on the staircase, arms wrapped around her knees, still trembling. He crouched down beside her. Sophia, please, he said softly. You have to calm down. You can't let this ruin everything. It's a holiday dinner, not a war. Mom shook her head, tears falling freely. Do you think I want this? Do you think I enjoy dragging up the past? But she lied about me. She turned him against me. Daniel, James, my James, I never even got a proper goodbye. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. I know, Mom, I get it, but screaming at her and storming out isn't helping. You need to tell her how you feel calmly. Calmly? Mom scoffed. There's nothing calm about this. Nothing. Meanwhile, back in the dining room, Margaret had poured herself a glass of wine, but her hands were shaking too. She muttered under her breath. I didn't think she'd ever bring James up. Why tonight? I walked back to the kitchen, trying to figure out a way to mediate. Emma followed me silently. Mom's really mad, she whispered. I know, sweetie, I said. But sometimes adults have problems that aren't easy to fix. We just have to wait for them to cool down. Just then, Daniel guided Mom back to the dining room. She stood at the doorway, fist clenched, face red. I'm listening, Margaret said flatly. Say what you need to say, but no yelling. Mom's voice wavered, but she forced herself to speak. You don't get it. You told him I was untrustworthy. You told him I would cheat on him. Do you know how that feels, to lose someone because your own sister decided to sabotage you? Margaret's eyes softened slightly. I was trying to protect him, that's all. I didn't know it would hurt you this much. I never wanted this to turn into a vendetta, Sophia. Mom blinked, tears still streaming. It feels like it was a vendetta for 20 years. It's felt like you've waited for me to fail. Margaret looked down. Maybe I did. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I see now I only made things worse. The room was silent for a few tense seconds. Emma peeked out from behind my leg, and even Daniel seemed cautious. Finally, Mom sighed deeply, her shoulders slumping. I can't just forget it, but I can try to move past it, for Emma, for Daniel, for me. I can't let this grudge eat me alive anymore. Margaret nodded. And I can't keep living as the villain. Maybe we try again, not for the past, but for what's left of our family. Mom gave a shaky smile, and for the first time that evening, it felt like a small truce had been reached. Daniel let out a long breath. Finally, can we eat before it all gets cold? A few awkward chuckles later, we returned to the table. Food was mostly untouched, the wine slightly warmed, but at least we were all together again. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. We sat down slowly, each of us taking a seat around the table like tentative truce negotiators. Mom and Margaret exchanged a glance, quiet but acknowledging the fragile peace. Daniel poured everyone more wine, and Emma picked at her mashed potatoes, still glancing nervously between the adults. The conversation was cautious at first. I asked Emma about her school project. She brightened, and we all laughed when she proudly described her science experiment. For a moment, it felt almost like the old holidays warm, light, harmless. Then Mom cleared her throat. I want to apologise for storming out and yelling. I let a lot of old anger get the better of me. Margaret nodded. And I'm sorry for keeping my mouth shut for so long and letting that resentment fester. I didn't realise how much pain it caused you. Daniel let out a relieved chuckle. Wow, I didn't think I'd ever hear you two apologise to each other voluntarily. Mom smiled faintly, wiping a tear. It doesn't erase the past, but maybe it can be the start of something better, for us, for Emma. Margaret's eyes softened. Agreed. I don't want Emma growing up thinking family is just a battlefield. I felt a wave of relief wash over me. The food was cold, but it didn't matter. I carved a slice of turkey, trying to keep things light. So, who wants pie? Emma jumped, me, and even Mom and Margaret managed a small laugh. The tension began to loosen. Later, as the evening went on, I noticed Mom quietly helping Margaret clear plates. No words, just small gestures. It wasn't perfect forgiveness, but it was progress. Daniel and I exchanged a look, silently acknowledging the miracle we were witnessing. Mom leaned over to me, whispering, "Thank you for not letting this dinner fail completely." I nodded. It's not over yet, Mom, but at least it's salvageable. By the end of the night, the truce held. Old grudges didn't vanish in a single dinner, but they softened. Mom and Margaret didn't hug goodbye like a Hallmark movie, but the stiffness between them was gone, replaced by something quieter, more human, understanding that family is messy, and sometimes surviving the holidays is its own victory. As we all said our goodbyes, Emma hugged each of us tightly. "Best Christmas ever," she said innocently. I smiled, though my chest was still heavy. Maybe it was the best we could hope for. Holidays were rarely perfect in our family, but tonight, for once, the long-held grudges didn't completely ruin everything. Mom lingered by the door before leaving, glancing back at Margaret. "We'll talk more soon," she said softly. Margaret nodded. And that, I realised, was enough for now. Enough for the holidays, enough for the family, and maybe even enough to start healing old wounds. The next morning, the house felt almost normal again, though traces of last night's chaos lingered, crumbs on the table, a faint scent of burnt pie, and the echoes of raised voices still in my head. Mom was in the kitchen, quietly sipping coffee, looking more relaxed than I had seen her in weeks. I joined her, carrying my own mug. "Morning," I said softly. She smiled, though it was tired. "Morning. You know, last night wasn't perfect, but it wasn't a disaster either." I nodded. "It's more than most families can manage. You and Aunt Margaret, you actually talked." Mom sighed, staring out the window at the snow-covered lawn. "Yeah, we didn't solve everything, but it's a start. I realised holding onto the grudge for 20 years only made me miserable. I wasted so much energy hating her instead of just living my life." I set my mug down. "Do you think you'll actually let go?" She shrugged. "I don't know if let go is the right word. I think move forward is better. I accept the past happened, but not let it define every holiday dinner." Later that day, Daniel called Mom. I overheard him joking with her about Emma trying to sneak more dessert last night. The sound of their laughter was like a balm on my frazzled nerves. Margaret stopped by to drop off her leftover pie, and I watched the two sisters exchange a polite, almost friendly conversation in the kitchen. No shouting, no accusations, just cautious civility. Emma bounced around the living room, playing with the decorations, and occasionally asking if we could decorate for next year. I smiled at her innocence and resilience. She hadn't been scarred by the fight, just reminded that adults could be complicated. Mom caught my eye and winked. "See, not all disasters leave scars." I laughed, though inside I knew some scars remained. But for the first time in years, it felt like the tension had softened enough that maybe future holidays wouldn't be this dramatic. Maybe. That evening, as the snow fell heavy outside, I sat by the fireplace reflecting. Family is messy. Family holds grudges. Family stirs up old pain at the worst possible times. But family also survives chaos, forgives, and sometimes even laughs after a storm. Mom came and sat beside me, resting her hand on my shoulder. "Thank you for keeping your cool last night," she said. "I think I finally understand that holding on to anger doesn't protect me, it just isolates me." I smiled and hugged her. "And I think Aunt Margaret feels the same way. It won't be easy, but at least now there's a chance for something better." For the first time in years, the holiday dinner ended not with resentment, but with hope. Hope that grudges could fade. Hope that family could survive, even after decades of secrets and misunderstandings. And hope that maybe, just maybe, next year's holiday would be a little less dramatic and a lot more peaceful. It wasn't perfect, but sometimes surviving the storm is enough.